Welcome back to The Rebel's Edge, where Marc LoPresti and I will break down a stock that was on its backside just a few weeks ago, but now hitting a fresh 52-week high. Welcome back, everybody. Again, that guy is Marc LoPresti. Marc is a director over here at Market Rebellion, as well as a recovering attorney and a deal maker, as well as headed up a big, small, it's, I guess, relative terms. He headed up our family office in Manhattan. And Marc joins me, of course, because Pete is not here. He is in the tropics somewhere, but you're used to seeing Marc on this show anyway because he's a regular. And Jared is handling all of the graphics, the clocks, the weird noises you might hear. No, that's not Marc's stomach growling or anything else over here. That's Jared putting those sound effects to it, as well as his favorite and yours, the Fantastic Future segment.
Fantastic Future! That was a premature futures emission, Jared. We got to be careful here. And I know we're all excited because it is the Market Rebellion Rebel's Edge holiday special, folks. This is the last Rebel's Edge before Santa shimmies down the chimney, depending on the size of your chimney, or Santa, as the case may be. I'm excited. I'm in my holiday finery. I've got my red handkerchief, my green jacket. I'm jolly and looking forward to a few days off with the family and sitting around and roasting chestnuts and doing all those wonderful things that we do. We do celebrate. We celebrate Christmas here at Market Rebellion. We celebrate other holidays too, but Christmas is the one that's on the horizon. It's great to be addressing the incredible Market Rebellion Nation. Jon, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and 6 days ago, I guess, was the last night of those 8 crazy nights for our friends that observe Hanukkah,
yes.
Which ended, I guess, last Friday night, I think, Marc. But we welcome all of you. We certainly appreciate your support. Remember, you can always go to marketrebellion.com/get started to learn more about educational and subscription offerings. But with all that said, Marc, let's dive into the Macro Minute. I know one of your favorite parts of the show, and I wanted to talk about the Red Sea, Marc, because even IKEA, it's not just the oil that goes through the Suez Canal. IKEA says that their products are being rerouted all the way around Africa as well, because that's, of course, the beauty of the Suez Canal. You could make a short hop rather than that 3,200-mile journey, but that's because of those Houthi rebels, Marc.
Well, I know there's going to be a lot of disappointed faces on Christmas morning when their overly complicated chest of drawers with instructions no one can read does not arrive, thanks to the Houthi rebels. I mean, come on. Joking aside, it started as an oil story. It's not just an oil story. It is expected to impact supply chain. Swedish superstore IKEA, the tip of the iceberg. Folks that I talk to, Jon, not just traders, but some of our friends that are former military generals, our great friend Tony Tata, one of them, tell me that the word on the street or on the sea is that this is going to last for a while. And it's interesting. I saw a story earlier that the Houthis might be actually using Chinese missiles. Questions around how they got their hands on those, perhaps via Iran. And of course, against the backdrop of Biden talking about extending tariffs on EV supply chain goods against China, perhaps in a bid to look tougher in an election year, things are getting even more complicated on the global macro scene. That's the Macro Minute.
That is. Well, let's, even though we previewed it, let's hit Fantastic Futures.
Fantastic Futures.
Well,
nice.
Fantastic Futures for all of you digital asset fans. You already know what we're going to hit. At least one of the futures that I'll talk about is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin traded above $44,000 USD per coin. That's a strong move that has been underway for weeks now as people anticipate a spot ETF, a spot Bitcoin ETF. That has not been formally announced, but it seems like it's building momentum, Mark.
Yep, it sure does. And of course, we've seen a lot of our favorite Bitcoin-related stocks, miners like our friends over at Hut 8, Marathon, Mara, the stock that many of us follow, all benefiting from this bullish trend in Bitcoin. So yeah, it looks like digital assets led by Bitcoin at the front of Santa's sleigh are going to be extending that Christmas Santa Claus rally. So good news for BTC holders like you and me.
Yep, and good news for Coinbase and those other stocks that Mark just covered, including our friend Jamie Leverton, the CEO of Hut 8, because they were, I think, ringing the bell yesterday at the NASDAQ, Mark.
Oh, I didn't see that. Celebrating their merger that they concluded about 2 weeks ago with another mining concern.
Exactly. Well, let's dive in now to the Micron news of the day, Mark. And some of you will think, oh, the news is Micron's up 6%, right? Yes, it is. It's up even more than that. But we had unusual option activity. You know, Jared, we might need to get a sound effect for unusual option activity. Maybe it's bang, maybe it's boom, maybe it's Pete's giddy up, who knows? But this one, folks, what happened was a little bit ago, they were buying unusual activity, meaning larger than normal purchases of upside calls. Micron was $74 a share back then. Well, today Micron trades through $84, almost $85 a share. And there you see it on the 8th of December was when we had that unusual activity. And it's all the way out in March, Mark. And it paid off in just weeks. Fantastic news for anybody that had these calls. And of course, the news was that they lost less than they were expected to lose, and yet sales jumped dramatically.
Yeah, another example of effective cost-cutting measures. I talked about this morning on my SiriusXM radio show. A shout out to Dan Looney, who is my host over there, and the production team. I don't talk about them enough. If you ever want to listen, I'm on at 10:15 every Thursday on SiriusXM Business Radio. Shout out to those guys over there. But as I talked about this morning, the winners of 2023 are going to be the companies that had the most effective cost-cutting measures. Micron, of course, the proof coming out in the pudding, losing less than the street expected, losing 95 cents a share versus the expected 97 cents a share. But John, what I really liked about the story on this stock is it looks like the AI demand and the impact, the positive impact on earnings for chip makers like Micron might be sooner in the calendar than expected if you listen to the commentary around these earnings. Plus, they've got a deal brewing with NVIDIA that has traders and investors of both of those popular stocks very excited. This is one to watch in the early parts of 2024.
Again, you guys want to get in on some of that unusual activity, go to marketrebellion.com/get started. And you could be trading like Mark, like Pete, like me. We follow that activity and it's got a high probability. It's not 100%, but a high probability of resulting in a move in the direction that Bobby Axelrod or whoever was buying those calls intended. All right, maybe it was dollar bill, who knows? Let's take a look, Mark, at Immunovant. This is a clinical stage immunology company, and they're dealing basically with autoimmune diseases. Well, stock is up strong. They had a phase 2 clinical trial. That's one of the things, of course, you have to get through phase 1, 2, and 3, and then hopefully you have enough money to get to commercialization of your product that works if you clear all 3 of those hurdles. This is one of those hurdles, Mark, and that's why the stock is up double digits today.
Yeah, yes, it is, John. We've been covering a lot of life sciences companies that have had negative news on the show this week. This is a positive one. Stock is up 6.25%, around $2.25 as we're live here on the air. We're going to have to see if this one makes it all the way to the finish line. But very positive news for Immunovant and their shareholders.
Absolutely. And that's why we watch these trials when there is a drug that might be subject to FDA approval. Phase 2 is not that, of course, but it's positive. We also watch for, court decisions on various lawsuits that go on. We watch for new product introductions. And that's one of the things I think that regular investors, Joes and Janes, can do is know about those time frames that those things could be either positive or negative, and then play accordingly. All right, let's talk, Mark, about CarMax, KMX. You're a car guy. Everybody knows that. He's got this crazy Mercedes with all these beefed up suspension and engine and so forth, among other cars, some Audis and some other things thrown in there. But this one, they exceeded Wall Street expectations, Mark. Stock moved up strongly. It was through 80 earlier this morning, pulls back to about 78 bucks a share, but they posted adjusted earnings of 52 cents versus 42, and that's good enough for near double-digit returns so far today.
Yeah, listen, I like this stock. This is one that we do watch and cover pretty carefully and that we do trade in and out of from time to time. And I'm going to give you a little secret if you want to trade stocks like CarMax and Carvana, two of the biggest names when it comes to used car sales. And that is one of my favorite economic indicators, John, particularly as a car guy who often buys his cars used. I don't like taking that off the lot 30% depreciation, especially on big ticket cars. And I'm talking, of course, about the Manheim Index. And the Manheim Index, which came in a couple of days ago, showing used car prices up about 2 basis points month over month. But, John, year over year, looking back to the same period for the Manheim report of December of 22, used car prices are down almost 6.5%. What happens when used car prices start to come back down to reality and affordability? People start to buy. So if you want to get an early look before the earnings, and Manheim usually comes out before CarMax, Carvana post the earnings, watch that Manheim Index, look at the futures in that stock. If you see some bullish activity, you might want to consider joining the party, because a good Manheim print, car prices coming down, usually means a good report for these used car wholesalers.
Yeah, the interest rates for that people finance right in there for new cars, used cars, as well as real estate, folks. So Mark is exactly right, giving you that insider tip about watching the Manheim as well. All right, Mark, let's talk about Boeing, one of the biggest industrial companies in America. Obviously manufacturing. What do they manufacture? Well, other than weaponry and so forth, and some of the global hawks and so forth, they manufacture airplanes. And this story today is about China basically giving them approval, the regulator in China giving them approval for the 737 MAX deliveries to resume. They have billions of dollars of these jets ordered now that there hasn't been an incident in the last several years, and that they think they have basically figured out the problems with the pilots that weren't properly trained on how this particular aircraft with the engines moved forward just a little bit affects avionics and so forth, how that plane flies. Well, China giving them a thumbs up, it seems, Mark. That should be good enough to carry them well into 2024.
Yeah, this is, of course, really good news for Boeing, for the major aerospace maker, as John pointed out earlier. They have been plagued for years and are still coming out of, hopefully this is among the last of the impact of course, that terrible incidents, the crashes that occurred with that MAX airliner. Couple of other things also propelling this stock today. News that LATAM Airlines just put an order for 5 more of those giant 787 Dreamliners. There was a surprise 777X order also placed in late November for Boeing. The firm announcing that just a day or so ago. That, of course, is one of their freight airliners for which they have, I think, a 5-year or so backlog. So all great news for Boeing. And look, most traders will agree, and most of the talk that I'm hearing is that airline and airfare demand, travel demand, is expected to ease a bit, but not enough to bring these airline stocks back down to the ground. So I'm expecting to see continued strength in that sector as we go into Q1 of 24.
And folks, if you've been watching the stock as closely as Mark and I do, you will likewise be heartened. Those who don't watch it as close will be surprised to find that since October, so basically, folks, within these final 2 months of the year, the stock has moved from 176 in October to nearly $92 higher than that. So this is one to watch. It's on the launching pad for sure. All right, Mark.
Some might say it's really taken off, Jon.
Taken off. I like that. Okay, so now we need yet another sound effect, Jared, for when Mark uses some bad pun. That we can fire. All right.
And Jon, just a quick small cap spotlight on today's show. A shout out to a company that's in our portfolio. Full disclosure, folks, we are both investors in this company and paid advisors to this company through Monte Advisory Partners, one of the affiliate businesses that Jon and I operate. I'm talking, of course, about BioLargo. This is a company that is developing some really remarkable and cutting-edge processes to get PFAS, a terrible contaminant that's in a lot of water systems, unfortunately. They announced yesterday that they were engaged and under contract for their first commercial deployment in a municipal drinking water system. Happens to be here in New Jersey, where I'm reporting to from today. So congratulations to everyone over at BioLargo, the stock moving to the upside yesterday and today on that news. And this is really important stuff. As you know, Jon, I am pretty heavily involved in efforts to try to get rid of those chemicals, particularly from our drinking water system. And this is a step in the right direction.
It's Red Zone Sports. Tom, let's see. Our buddy Harbaugh, Mark, the head coach of Michigan, one of Pete's friends, even if they win the title this year, will it be the most tainted ever? Is my question, because they've got notices of violations for recruiting. They've got notification of violations of spying and so forth. So if Michigan wins, I'm sure the fans will love it and they'll dismiss that. But would this be a really tainted national championship if indeed they're able to beat Alabama and make it into the championship game, Mark?
Well, I happen to think they have a very good chance of beating Alabama. Bama, of course, a fantastic team, but my bet's on Michigan. But what is these allegations about that they were recruiting during COVID when they weren't supposed to? Am I understanding that correctly? There was a recruiting hiatus during COVID times?
Yep, you are. Because of the perceived, again, it was fear-mongering, but because of the perceived danger in getting on airplanes and flying around the country and so forth and so on, and being face-to-face with somebody like a recruit, they didn't let them do that. So allegedly, because it hasn't been proven yet, Mr. Harbaugh did that. And he allegedly oversaw the information from Mr. Stallions, who was giving him spy information about those placards that teams hold up about what play they're about to run and so forth. I think Michigan's good enough to win without that, Mark, but I think with that hanging over them, this would be a tainted championship, I believe, if indeed they win it.
Interesting. I don't think the fans will care.
Yeah, and I guarantee if you have money on the right team, you won't care either. All right, let's then switch gears and go to Christian McCaffrey, who last year, that was the biggest move, Mark, by a team because, of course, the 49ers got CMC, Christian McCaffrey. They got him from Carolina, probably for a bag of balls or something. I mean, Carolina and Tepper are just crazy in what they've done as far as making some of these ludicrous moves, trades with the Bears so that they could move up and then draft this Bryce Young, who's been a flop. But anyway, this year it's the 49ers again, Mark, making a huge move. And this time it was Chase Young that they got from the Washington Commanders. Of course, turnover there from Daniel Snyder to a new ownership group. And first thing they did was get rid of their 2-star defensive players. And Chase Young went to the Niners, and that kid is a phenom. And another Ohio State kid, you've got Bosa on one side and Chase Young on the other. They were both top draft picks, and now they're both on the same team. And I think that takes them to the Super Bowl.
That is entirely possible, John. But I think one of the more interesting moves, if we're talking about bold moves in the NFL this year, was the Bills signing Leonard Floyd. He's arguably one of the most underrated and inexpensive insurance for Von Miller, who's starting to get a little long in the tooth. And so that would be my pick. I mean, I like yours too, but I think the Bills move with Leonard Floyd would be the one that stood out for me.
Well, and you could be right. I still like Chase Young, but the reason Mark could be right, folks, is you look at how the Bills have performed in the second half of the season. First half of the season, it was up and down. I mean, they even lost to the Jets when they didn't have Aaron Rodgers. They had him for 4 plays, but then they didn't have him and they lost. And that was an embarrassing loss to a horrible Jets team, again, without a quarterback that could hit the broadside of a barn. But now you've got the Bills building momentum. And so you could be proven right with that pick, Mark. The next several weeks will tell, but I like that identification of Mr. Floyd as potentially one of those huge moves that'll make a big difference for them into the playoffs. So, yeah, kudos to you. All right. Well, folks, we wish you all the happiest of holidays. We will not be on air tomorrow because Friday's our travel day. I'll be traveling. Mark will probably be traveling, but he hasn't told me where yet. Pete is already in the tropics somewhere. So we appreciate all of you guys joining us. We won't be back Monday because you know why? Santa will be hanging around on Monday. And a lot of us will be enjoying families and opening presents and all that kind of stuff. But we will be back Tuesday. So we'll see you then. Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Merry Christmas, Mark. We'll see all of you on Tuesday.